Hello again, rail fans. You know, whenever I go out, I sometimes cross over short line railroads. I look down the track and I think, does that line ever get used anymore? It's easy to get that impression because short lines usually only operate on weekdays, not weekends. Weekends are when rail fans are out, so a lot of times we just don't see those lines operating. And the second thing is the short lines don't have the wherewithal to do expensive maintenance and upkeep on their lines. They really don't have to in the same way. Short lines are the pickup and delivery segment of the industry. They go to their interchange railroad, they pick up inbound cars for customers, deliver them, and then take outbound cars back to the interchange railroad. In most cases, they don't go fast and they don't go far. So a 10-mile-an-hour track is about all that's needed for a short line operation. But once in a while, old track starts to fall below even 10-mile-an-hour standards. And that's when a major, expensive overhaul is needed. Let's take a ride out to Frostproof, Florida, and take a look at how one local short line railroad accomplished this feat. I'm running eastbound on Florida State Road 60. This is one of the few highways that'll get you all the way across the state from the Gulf to the Atlantic. It begins at Clearwater Beach's famous Pier 60 on the Gulf and runs eastward to the public beach access in Vero Beach on the Atlantic. We're not going that far this morning. We're veering off at Lake Wales and heading south on State Road 17, the scenic highway. I'm on the way to see something I've only seen once before, but never in such a dramatic fashion. I got the word from Regional Rail Vice President Matt Shireen about an improvement project on one of their older lines. I arrived at the meetup spot where a job briefing was just getting started. The operation is tie replacement and ballast rehab on the Florida Midland Railroad's line from Lake Wales to just south of Frostproof. Using contractor R.J. Corman Railroad Services, the Florida Midland is replacing around 16,500 ties on 15 miles of line. Two of the most important customers on this line are down at the very end of it. The first is one of the biggest names in the Florida citrus industry. I'll tell you why there are 3 covered hoppers loaded with anthracite coal when we come back through. About a mile farther south, at the end of track, lies the Lowe's distribution center for all of South Florida. Florida Midland brings them building materials and merchandise in boxcars and on center beam flats. Now back to those anthracite coal hoppers. Ben Hill Griffin is a major player in the fertilizer trade. They also recently picked up this piece of business. The Florida Midland delivers anthracite coal in covered hoppers where it's transloaded to trucks and hauled to a nearby steel mill. The mill doesn't have a rail spur, but Ben Hill Griffin does, and they help close the gap for that mill. The first part of the track rehab happened a few days earlier when ties needing replacement were marked, then a few new protective ties were installed. This made sure the rails underneath would support the machinery during the transition. On this Saturday morning, the work begins like it always does, with the spike puller. All spikes must be removed from the ties marked for replacement. The spike puller yanks them out like pulling a spoon out of mashed potatoes. With the engine running wide open and the claws banging up against the rail, it's a noisy business. But not in the cab. In here, it's shockingly quiet. Operator Greg Berger is pulling spikes on the west rail, while another spike puller right behind is working the east rail. The machines can do both sides at the same time with 2 operators, but this morning they're using 2 separate machines. Nothing is automatic in this process. Greg is watching out the windshield, moving the machine forward with foot controls. And when he reaches a marked tie, he moves the claw down, grabs the spike, and pulls it out. No lasers, no GPS, no AI. These machines are just manual tools of their operators. The cab of the spike puller is remarkably comfortable, even if it is a bumpy ride. The AC keeps it cold enough that the windows are fogged up on this very humid July morning. Fortunately, there are wipers all the way around. Right behind the spike pullers, the first trip machine goes to work. The pull-out trip raises the rail underneath itself, grabs the old marked ties, and pulls them to the side. There are 3 trip machines on this team. Right behind those guys comes a pair of tie handler cranes. The first is pulling out broken ties where he finds them. When a tie is in pieces, the trip machine can't get a hold of it as well as a tie handler's claw. He's also stacking old ties in piles away from the track. The second tie crane is grabbing new ties from piles and carefully placing them next to spaces left by the old ties. Makes it faster for the trip exchangers to do their insertions. This is one of the reasons for this project. In places where bad ties stop supporting the rail, a good tie next door just can't hold it up by himself and will sometimes break under the pressure of trains passing overhead. Here is a section with 3 bad ones in a row, all marked to be swapped out. In this campaign, 1,100 will be replaced in every mile of track. Now a pair of trip machine exchangers, the new tie guys. These are the muscle of the conga line, grabbing the new ties placed by the cranes and shoving them into place underneath the rail that the machine is standing on. It's a little like a crew fixing a pothole in the road underneath their truck with the crew still sitting in the truck. This project is made financially possible through a grant from the federal government, the Federal Railroad Administration's Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements Program. One of that program's purposes is to help railroads improve safety and supply chain resilience. This $9.2 million project will definitely improve the reliability of this old track. This railroad is an original Atlantic Coastline branch. Construction started around 1910 at the ACL main line in Haines City and built southward through Lake Wales, Babson Park, Frostproof, Avon Park, Sebring, Lake Placid, and down to Everglades City in South Florida. SCL started pulling up parts of the Haines City branch not long after the 1967 merger, and today it lies in pieces. A tiny spur at Haines City, a segment from Sebring to Lake Okeechobee, now owned by U.S. Sugar, and this part, running from Lake Wales to about a mile south of Frostproof. The Florida Midlands connection to the CSX is via a remnant of the old seaboard that connects at Lake Wales and runs west to West Lake Wales and the SAL's Miami extension, which is now the CSX Auburndale sub. After the spikes are pulled and the new ties are swapped in, here comes the tie plate broom. This guy's spinning brush is as wide as the ties are long, and it removes material and debris from the tie plate area. The side-mounted control panel allows the operator to control it while walking alongside on the ground. Then more guys walking on the ground, manually picking up and placing the tie plates on top of the new ties. That was closely followed by what was, in my opinion, one of the coolest machines out here, the Nordco Rail Lifter. This turns what used to be a back-breaking team maneuver into a one-man job. It grabs the rail, lifts it up just enough so that a tie plate can be pushed into position, all controlled and done by one man with a wired remote. Now it's time to nail it all down. The spike driver machine handles that with ease. spikes drop down from a loaded bin on the back. The operator positions the drivers over holes in the tie plates and wham! Spikes are hammered down in 2 seconds. I had to break off here because I got a chance to go back up the line and meet up with another of the muscle machines in this operation. At the next crossing to the north, Chris Williams is operating the Knox-Kershaw ballast regulator. This big machine performs several tasks. This morning it's grading the ballast material and pulling it back up and into the track structure. The process of replacing ties creates a lot of holes in the track bed. Chris is using those blades, called wings, to gather up and shove in dirt and ballast rocks to fill in those holes. The regulator works the track in quarter-mile segments, and it takes a number of trips up and back to get things smoothed out and shaped up. Fortunately for Chris and me, it's just as cool and quiet in the cab of the regulator as it was back in the spike puller. Matt and I stopped at the Lake Wales ACL Depot and Museum so I could see the finished product of this track makeover. The casual observer might never pick up on the fact that this is 85-pound jointed rail, much of it forged 100 years ago, but still on the job and now ready to keep on working. It was afternoon, so we stopped for lunch in Frostproof, a diner called Johnny's Egg House. I am 100% on board when a diner has these menus with the clear plastic pages and the brass corner things. I think all restaurants should have these. Breakfast or lunch is always a hard choice, no matter the time. We chose lunch. I had a Philly cheesesteak with coleslaw and onion rings. The sandwich was great, but the onion rings were really great. With iced tea, it was about $17 and delicious. Matt had a Reuben with fries and coleslaw, and it looked every bit as good as mine. Johnny's Egg House is on South Scenic Highway, a block and a half south of the downtown in Frostproof. The Florida Midland Railroad, as well as the Florida Central and the Florida Northern short lines, are owned and operated by Regional Rail, which operates in 18 cities around the country and 4 here in Florida. Now, a couple of things I didn't cover in this video. The tamper. He usually comes in last to resettle the ballast and straighten out the rails. They weren't doing that this day, so I completely missed that. Also, since this is jointed rail, all that lifting, brushing, pulling and spiking is bound to loosen some of the bolts at the joints. So after everything is complete, a team comes in to tighten all the bolts along the track that was rehabilitated. Most of it is done by machine, some of it by hand. I missed that too. My thanks to Matt Shireen, VP of Regional Rail Southern Region, for all his help in making this video happen. Also, to the team at R.J. Corman Railroad Services, very nice guys, all of them. I know there's nothing more annoying than having some guy taking pictures of you while you're trying to get some work done. But you all did it without complaint, and my thanks to you for that. Got a new sign back there on the fence. That is from Matt Shireen also. That's a tone code that train crews can use to activate crossing signals. Crossings equipped with this radio DTMF technology are locations where they often run into rusty rail conditions, which means that the crossing approaches may not consistently detect the train and activate the signals. In those cases, they use the radio and tone signal the lights and gates to activate. So my thanks to Matt for that. All right, put your comments down below. I read them all. It's where I find out what you're thinking about all this stuff I do, and where I get ideas on new videos. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. Won't cost you a dime, and it puts you on a list to be notified whenever I post a new video. And let's make plans to meet up again soon, somewhere out there on the high iron. And until we do, this is Danny Harmon.